Hello and welcome back to Falcon Blues TV. So today I'm joined with Dave Fehily. Dave, thanks very much.
No worries, brother.
Appreciate you coming on. And obviously Rob Sloman, the director. Thanks for giving me some tips with that as well, by the way. You're professional. But obviously today we're here to talk about this fantastic film. Now if you haven't seen it yet, click down below in the description, all the relevant links are there. Now I've sent both of you a message each about how it was for me to watch it. I watched it 3 times, watched it with my brother, watched it with my father. It's amazing how emotional it made my family. You know, I mean, my dad always jokes that I cursed Everton. I was born in '88. So, but what I'd like to start with is, what is the genesis of this film? Now, we met Graham Sharp recently and he said he'd heard about it from a few years ago.
Yeah.
How long has this been in the works?
Start with Robert. Well, I guess the idea isn't a new one, is it? You know, I mean, that there should be a film about that team. You can have the idea and think, well, somebody should do it. And then it just gets to a point where you think, well, maybe I should do it. and I'd met David, actually probably the first thing I wanted to do, because I always thought there should be some sort of fan representation. And I'd been sort of looking at Twitter and just seeing who were the sort of Evertonian voices on Twitter as a fan, from a fan's perspective. And this guy was very prominent, and I noticed that he replied to everyone. He was very polite, you know. If anyone wrote to him, he always replied. And we got talking about cricket, didn't we? It was cricket that we started talking about, because I was a big fan of the West Indies back in the 80s, and Viv Richards and all this sort of stuff. So we got talking about that, and I then saw him, because I sort of knew his face from Twitter. I then was at the West Ham game, the cup game where we got beaten 27-26 on penalties or whatever it was. And I saw him there, and I said something along the lines of, I'd like to make a film about Everton, and if I can do it, I want some fans involved, and I'll come back to you. And then, you know, I didn't see you again, did I? I didn't see you again until...
No, actually what he said to me was, I really want to make this film, and I think me and you could do it, but it's going to take me 2 years. At that point, I just looked at him and thought, have you been in there with them at half time? I don't know. 2 years? Are you kidding me? However, in fairness to him, I said, yeah, in principle, as far as I can recall, I said, I'm up for the idea of it, come back to me when you do. Virtually to the week or the month, he come back to me in 2 years and said, do you remember that idea I pitched to you? And I said, yeah, one morning on Twitter, yeah, in the messages, yeah. He said, well, I think I'm ready to start thinking about doing it now. So it was at that point that the actual genesis of the project began from then. Because we're going to need this, and we're going to need this, and that.
Around about the same time, I knew Andy Gray, but that's the only. I'd worked with Trevor Stephen, but a long time ago, and so I knew Andy a little bit. And
God bless you.
Yeah, and I sort of approached Andy and said, I want to do this, or I think I want to do this. I've had some encouragement from it was Universal at the time. I'd had some encouragement from them. And Andy put me in touch with Peter Reid and Graham Sharp, and then it sort of went from there, and one by one approached the players and tried to get to see them, not the ones that were abroad, but the ones that, you know, I could come up to Liverpool and see, or Port Bracewell I saw down in London, and just said, look, this is what I want to do, you know, would you be involved, do you want to be involved? And everybody said yes. I think they weren't, any of them, certain that it would happen, but everybody said yes. So and from that point forward, it was a question of whether Universal were going to back it, and I thought they were, and then unfortunately after about 12 months they didn't back it, by which stage we'd already done some filming with the stuff that you saw at Goodison Park around the Bayern Munich game, for the Bayern Munich game. We'd done that because I knew Andy was over, and I just thought, well, listen, we'll just do it. So
I think I've seen an interview with you. You were discussing that you thought around the Millwall FA Cup game things.
Well, no, that was so after we did in the summer of 2018, we did the stuff at Goodison. Then, whilst Andy was still over on his break from beIN Sports, I went to speak to him. So we filmed with Andy, and then we filmed with Colin Harvey. And then that was all the money I had. So we sort of stopped at that point, and I thought, well, I've got enough to be able to make a little teaser or just to give people an idea of what was possible. But I also had no money left. So
I was just about to say, to give this context, when we get to the end of this film, and tell you to buy this DVD, it's not to put anyone on a yacht in Cannes. His family literally invested their money in it, and if you listen to him now, we'd already filmed 2 major parts of that movie on his budget without anybody else ever hypothetically coming in to rescue us.
Sure.
Therefore, the point I'm trying to make is it was a labour of love from the very get-go, from the very minute one, where nothing was guaranteed. And he's not going to say it, but I need to say it. That's why you need to buy it, because I want him and his kids to get the money back, because they did this for us, with us, for us. That's my point. Carry on.
I have to. It wasn't quite as but it wasn't quite as cavalier as that. In that I did think Universal were going to back it.
Sure.
I did think, and then they pulled out, and I told everybody it was happening, and so when they pulled out, that was the Millwall. That was just before the Millwall game, and I that weekend I was thinking, I've got to tell everybody it's not happening, and I wasn't looking forward to that, because the likes of Dave and Keith and that they'd already invested quite a bit of time and energy, and I wasn't looking forward to that. And then Millwall beat us in the FA Cup in horrible fashion, and I'm sat there and I thought, this is up there with the worst weeks I've ever had.
Imagine,
and I was still sweating on the Monday. Okay, I'll start telling people that it probably won't happen. And within about half an hour, I got an email. So I think 2 or 3 days earlier, I'd spoken to a friend, and I just said to her, Universal had gone, so I was just like, don't suppose you have any wealthy Evertonian mates, do you? And Mel Chappell, she's an agent, lovely girl, and she just said, I might have actually. And so I sent her an email that I had ready to press.
Yeah.
As somebody likes to say, it was oven ready. And so I just sent it to her. She forwarded it to him. And then after the Millwall game, within about half an hour, he came back and said, Jesus, it's time to wallow in a bit of 84.5. Yeah. And that was the first contact I'd had with him. And he then only told me on the night of St George's that he was watching the Millwall game, and we were 2-1 up quite late, weren't we?
Yeah. And
then they equalised, and he said he was watching it, and he got my email there, and he was thinking, I'd like to do it, but maybe not now. I'm busy. There's a lot of stuff going on, so maybe back burner time. And then Millwall scored a horrible goal, wasn't it? I was fast forwarding because I was behind. I remember being behind at the time and thinking, I'll just fast forward it maybe to the final whistle. And then when you fast forward too far and they're just running away, celebrating, you're like, oh my God.
I remember it well because the Millwall manager was screaming to get the replay off the screens because there was handball.
Yeah. But, that's right. Yeah. So he was fed up. I was fed up. But as soon as he sent that,
that was also fed up. By the way,
it wasn't pretty, was it? But because of that, actually, because of Millwall scoring like they did in the last minute, and yet another horrible
catalyst.
Yeah. That then prompted him to write to me, probably an emotional reaction.
Thanks for that.
But from that moment, so that's Phil Brown, and from that moment, I was then sort of reinvigorated. Still needed another investor, which I thought I'd got, and then that didn't happen, and that was when I had the discussion with the wife, and we thought...
And you became the investor. Back to my original point about the DVD, you became half investor. That's what happened.
Yeah. So we had a proper chat about it. It wasn't like we just said, "I'll do it," because it is a big risk for us, and so. But we did. I think my wife, who's more likely to gamble than I am, but I think her line was, well, you've got this close, you're going to mope for 10 years if you don't make this house.
It's also a lot cleverer than
so she pushed, we had a chat, she pushed hard, and I wanted to make it, so I agreed, and we went for it. So thank you Millwall, really. Thank you Millwall and Phil Brown.
So much.
Yeah. So
so much.
So and from that was what, January, February, wasn't it, when Millwall?
January.
So then very quickly we decided we were going to go for it. Then it was a question of how do we actually say we're going to do it. So I spoke to Andy, he was coming over, and I said, well, we'll just announce it. We'll just say that we're going to do it, and then that puts us all in the situation that we've got to. I'm not sure actually time-wise. I think that we announced it before the second investor had pulled out, which meant that when he did, I felt like we had to do it.
You can see we're really good at the planning. It's bespoke. You can see we've got it nailed. You're probably aspiring to be a filmmaker, thinking, I want to be them. To look how their ideas just come together.
Yeah. There was a little bit of chaos within the planning, so and then it went really fast. March, April, May, we filmed. You know, if it moved, we filmed it, and the players were great in terms of making themselves available, and did a lot of multiple shoots on a day. So from a cameraman's perspective, you know, they get paid a daily rate. So if they rock up and do a 10-minute interview and that's their day, then they get the same amount as they do if they. What we were doing, filming 3 or 4 things.
Yeah, you weren't letting them have 10 minutes though. You had 3 different things.
I forgot to feed
at least on the same day.
At least once I forgot to feed him. Yeah. You know, and you know, so
never ever fed him.
So it's all right for me. I was sort of running around. I was busy. I'd have a coffee. I'd get a biscuit or whatever, and I'd think, all right, I need to keep going. But not everyone, you know. You know, so the cameraman who's lugging his kit around, etc.
What type of food were you getting to?
No, Greg.
You do know. You do know what you were getting because you moaned about it.
Mackies, a lot of Mackies, but it wasn't. It was kind of. It was literally. The thing about it wasn't just the filming. So we'd have to be there in the morning and work. It really was. Some of the days when we done Timmy Cale, for example, we'd done Trevor Stephen in Altrincham in the morning, Derek over the water in Wilston in the afternoon, and then had to go and meet Timmy Cale in a golf club in West Allerton at like 9 o'clock.
Wow.
At 8, 9 o'clock, and he walks in. We get there. Timmy Cale's there, me and him, and was Rob with us? The cameraman was with us as well. Damien was with us as well, and nobody else. So like normally there's someone to help lift the stuff. So he just looked at me and then looked at Timmy Cale, who I've never met before, and said, "Listen, I'm going to have to go and help set up. You're going to have to be all right with Dave for a bit." I would looked at him and said, "For how long for?" He said, "Oh, about half an hour."
You killed 25 minutes of that just by hugging him.
I looked at Timmy Cale and just went, "Are you all right?" He went, "Yeah, sit down." It was this kind of stuff, and now Timmy's kind of my mate, and every time I put a picture of my mother on the internet, he's the first person to like it. That's what kind of happened with this film, stuff like that.
Now, I've got a really good idea for you here. After hearing some of this, I mean, I'm a real film nerd, and what I like documentaries about Blade Runner, Alien, love Ridley Scott. You should do a little documentary about the making of Howard's Way.
My mother's agent.
Sounds like there's some
all
tales.
Bad, Joe. My mother's agent. You'll never be able to afford it no more. You'll never be able to afford it, honest to God, but it's a great idea, yeah.
So, obviously, it sounds like it was a lot of hard work to get it done. How gratifying is it, though, for both of you to see the overwhelming positivity coming from it? Because everyone loves it.
I'm going to answer this one, or I'll answer it first. I was terrified.
I seen you before the Norwich game, I remember, yeah.
Thing about this was, I was involved in this process. The most part I remember, as much as any of it, you won't ever even see. We spent hours in the library, going through microfilm, for no particular reason, not knowing where we were going with it. We just did it anyway.
No, that's very hard.
No, I mean,
not knowing where we were going with it.
You've just said we had no investor. I mean, I
see what you mean.
I mean, I'll qualify that remark. We knew exactly what we were looking for, but without any guarantee that the end product would end up in what the reason we walked through the door in the first place. There might not be a film made of it. We did it anyway, so it got to there. But when I got into the actual screening, just to recap, I'd been involved in all of the filming except abroad and things, odd things I couldn't make. So I'd basically seen everybody's input into it, but it didn't have anything to do with the editing. And he asked me a few times, did he want to see an advanced thing? Do you want to have a look at your bit? And I was just like, do you know what? No. I'd rather...
Didn't want to see no dailies?
He's playing it down a bit. His role on some of the shoots was to walk through camera just as we'd started filming. He did that a couple of times.
Or entertain Andy Gray for 5 hours in a box at Goodison Park. Yeah. Honest to God, Andy Gray, or that one, is that the other one? With Pat and Snod and who else was with us? Sharpie. I don't know.
Do you know what? I mean, so Andy Gray, Graham, Peter Reid, they're all loud voices, okay? Sure. So I'm running about outside of there because we've got the drone, we've got 3 cameras, and I'm keen to not delay it too much. You know, I want it to be right, but I don't want to keep them in the box forever. So I'm running past, and all I can hear, so you've got Andy Gray in there, one of the biggest voices probably in the last 50 years of football, and Reedy can talk, and Graham Sharp's no shrinking violet. And as I go past, all I can hear is this one. Story after story from this one. You know, I go this way, he's talking that way.
He started throwing out at me. Sharpie didn't believe about Terry Curran playing in the 84 semi-final. Andy Gray backed me up, really wanted to join in and just looked at Sharpie and went, he's right. So that's what started it off. Yeah. But my point was, Keith was in the room with me that day, Curating was in the room with us that day, and we ended up spending, the shooting was like 40 minutes, 45 minutes in a day what lasted 7 hours. And I sat around the table with those people, and I knew Reedy and I knew Sharpie, also Snods, and Pat's kind of, his girlfriend to be a very good friend of mine, so I've known Pat for years. But I did not know Andy Gray, I'd never met Andy Gray. But by the time I walked out the room, again, like Timmy, he's my mate, he's on my Insties now, and I can talk to him and stuff. And I know his boy is a friend and stuff. And so that's the bit, actually. When we're here to talk about the making of it, well, I'm telling you, it was a labour of love. No one asked about money. Let's have that right for the start. Nobody asked about money. But the other thing was... yeah, just as well. Anyway, the thing about this was, though, as an Evertonian myself who does this stuff all the time, if you're going to make a film about this team, honest to God, you better do it right. Because if you embarrass us, or you dilute it or make it wishy-washy, you're just inviting criticism. So what I was trying to do, by the time we got to the premiere, I am today sitting here filming this today with the imminent, it appears, the imminent installation of Carlo Ancelotti as our new manager. The crisis we were in at the time the film begins, not my bit as a kid with Bally, the next bit when the gaffer walks in and we were headless and we looked like we'd never get a direction and the other crowd had just put 5 past us. It's kind of symptom, it's a mirror image one from the other. There's loads of similarities, so I was kind of trying to convey that. But the other thing about it is that the reason me and Keith Mullen, the other thing was Rob approached me at West Ham and then came back to me and said about the music. And I was like, I thought he was messing around. I was like, my best mate does this. He sits next to me in the ground. So if you look, so it's all Mullen. But we signed on because when he approached us, it wasn't about making an Everton end of season thing about 1985. It had to have the politics and the club and the music and the drugs. These were all relevant aspects of it. And that's actually why I'm in it quite a bit, because all those things happened to me personally, and I'm still doing it today, so I'm kind of a metaphor for it. But it really wasn't about me or anybody else individually in this thing. That was the deal, that was the ideal, what we bought into. If you get all of these things into it, add the football, what actually happened, and the stories of the players to plat in amongst it, that will be the beauty. Well, that's how we started off, that was the concept behind it.
The depiction of what you did with Merseyside in the 80s, it's one of the best parts of it. But what I did want to ask you is, who come up with the soundtrack? Was that a collective?
Keith Mullen.
Keith picked them all, yeah?
He put a list.
He didn't pick it right. So when
say it was him now.
No, I'm not.
No, he is.
I'll never say that because there's too many people who would know what my musical take was. I was a bit more stock aitken and Waterman in the 80s than perhaps I should admit to. But anyway, so when Dave said to get Keith on board, Keith was very keen. We just exchanged a few emails, and one of the first emails I sent to him was a few tracks that I thought might work. And
what are these tracks?
Honestly, I can't remember now, but I do remember.
Still got the email. I do
remember that there was. I came to watch a gig that Keith was putting on, and I was stood there with one of the guys, one of the co-writers, and I just said, I really like the intro to Nick Kershaw's. I can't remember what's the. There's a big intro, whatever. Nick Kershaw song. It was the right year. And I just said, I really like the intro. And his mate looked at me and said, yeah, you could put that one in. You'd lose all your credibility. You could put that one in. And that basically went pretty much hand in hand with the fact that when I sent my original email to Keith, a lot of. It wasn't that he crossed a lot out. It's just that I probably only had 4 on my list that I thought were relevant, and then he just added a load more. But funnily enough, the first 3 that I knew I wanted in the film, the ones that, because of the research that I'd done, I wanted Dignity by Deacon Blue, right? And I really wanted that. For the lyrical content, I think Dave told me they were still big up here, and they sing some of the songs on the buses, you know.
He can come sing if you're right now on the end of that table. He's literally having a berry over there now.
I wanted John and Vangelis. It doesn't really work if you can't, you know. John,
no description. I'm a writer. I can tell the story.
John and Vangelis, I'll Find My Way Home. I wanted that because it was relevant to a story that I had for the
That's not the
film.
same Vangelis who did the Blade Runner song.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So,
I love Blade Runner song.
So and then the third one I wanted was Elton John's Guess That's Why They Call It the Blues, because that was the original song that was over Howard's funeral. And when I first watched it and I heard that music came out, I pretty much started crying straight away. I just thought, oh God, that's so powerful, and we didn't get any of those. Deacon Blue turned us down because they feel like they didn't want to come down on one side of the divide or the other. Liverpool, Everton, they didn't want to. Were popular in Liverpool, etc. Yeah. And then
I'm going to say that next time the kids want to sing their song, and the boss, I'm going to say we'd love to, but we can't, just in case another Glasgow band worries us.
I'll put Deacon Blue on the list.
So I think it's John Anderson, isn't it? John Anderson and Vangelis, and they've. I don't know whether they've had a fallout or not, but one said yes, the other said no, so we couldn't use that one. Okay. And then we didn't even, you know, the money that we were able to offer was never really going to probably appeal to Elton John's record company, so we didn't get near that one. So that's really when Keith came into his own, because immediately I needed songs replacing, and he just came up with songs that meant a lot to that era, bands that were local, bands that were popular. I know there's a couple of guys that have been saying, Fiction Factory were a Scottish band, etc. But
it was about the lyrics of Fears Like Heaven.
But it was very much that. But Adrian Heath remembers watching them as well. So, you know, just because you're from Scotland doesn't mean you can't gig in Liverpool.
Fiction Factory. If you watch the clip, as he puts the ball in the net, the chorus says Fears Like Heaven. That's your job done. That's the reason it's there. But also, Keith composed incidental music throughout it. Colin, the bit with Colin and the Gaffer's funeral, it's beautiful. Truly, he's me Bezzy, and I'm gonna have his back, especially in front of a camera. But listen to it and tell me that I'm wrong. Go and download it and listen to me. Honestly, it's poignant. Yeah. He encapsulates the time. He's a fucking genius, by the way. So
Keith was an utter joy to work with, and
so was I.
Given Dave was an utter to work with, but Keith was brilliant, and he's such a warm chap. He's very calm. He's good for Dave, because, you know, Dave will come at you at 100 miles per hour, etc. And Keith is sort of nodding sagely in the background. And
he's my manager, stroke best friend.
He was
just
so
to qualify that, just to parenthesis, they call it, don't they?
That's right.
He's so helpful, Keith, and just a really warm human being. And obviously he didn't really let on that he wasn't very well for a major part of this project, because he just doesn't want to fuss. That's not his thing at all. The other night when I think the farm tweeted, you know, he's got the all clear, and he's been battling this, and, you know, and thousands liked that and responded, and I just had this picture of Keith at home. He'd been going, oh really, I don't, you know, and that's just what he's like. But, you know, the film doesn't happen in the way that it happens without Keith Mullen. He was brilliant.
Absolutely,
he was brilliant.
The soundtrack's amazing. My personal favourite was Heaven. The psychedelic phase. I'd never heard that song, but
I had the album at the time. Man.
I got onto that. You had Flock of Seagulls in it. The photograph of you. My brother Mark, hello Mark, he's a big fan of Flock of Seagulls. Loves it. He used to send me out when I was younger to be like, right, here's 20 quid. Go and get this CD, and be like, what's this? No, Flock of Seagulls. I knew I ran, but then I listened to all of it. That was my favourite Flock of Seagulls song. I was quite happy to see that in there.
That was where Keith was brilliant, because he just knew those tracks from.
And funny enough though, he let China Crisis Pointy Eddie, who I call Pointy Eddie because he calls me Pointy Dave, but he's a guy. So I was like, whoa, Pointy Eddie's in my film. Whoa, hold up here. But Keith knows these people on a personal level. The fact that they're all musicians, but for the most part, the Liverpool ones, he's friends with all of them, so you've got that added layer of authenticity. That's the thing about Keith Mullen. He brings it in both. In the film, he gets his input into the actual video aspect of the film. He's talking about the toffees and politics. he doesn't start saying with a guitar, I'm Keith Mullen and I do this for a living. Nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
The other bit you get for nothing because he comes with this. That's how he is in life. He becomes your mate.
Yeah.
All these other doors open up to you just because he's your mate. You see what I'm saying to you? Well, he done kind of that for us on the
So it just rolling back a little bit. So when I met Dave to start with, he said, you know, you need to meet Keith. Keith can help with the music, and he also said you need to get in touch with Karina Duffy at Everton in the community.
another excellent decision by me, incidentally, in case it gets forgotten at the end.
It won't get forgotten. It won't get forgotten
By you.
But Karina was outstanding. So you know she
does a lot for Everton in the community.
But she made things happen for us. So access to the ground for the Bayern Munich chat. You know, we wanted to go onto the centre of the pitch and the groundsman wouldn't have it. He would not have it, and he had Andy Gray and Graham Sharp either side of him saying, you know, it wasn't like this in the 80s. He said, let us do this in the 80s. Anyway, they didn't budge and we had to go down to the corner of Gladys. But Karina made that happen. She helped with Colin. She helped with the Kevin Sheedy shoot. You know, in the background, she was working away, just little things.
And she is literally in the background in the film. If you see the Winslow's shoots when we're all around the table,
she hates that.
If you look over,
she hates that. She hates that. But,
she's there.
You know, it's little things that nobody thinks at the time. You know, can we get some car parking spaces and stuff like that? Yeah, we'll sort it. It was all fine. So everything was really easy.
And she's on the pitch with the ball.
Yeah. So I mean, she just made things happen and took away a lot of the stress that you can have, and no one thinks of some of those. You know, and just you know, on the day of the of the chat about Bayern Munich at Goodison, you know, there was food there for us. There was drink. You know, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So She's not somebody that shouts it from the rooftops, Karina, but you know,
she's not.
She would make, and I said this on the night at St George's, but you could put any company you like doing any job you like, and she would make it a stronger team, company, whatever, by being part of it, because she's that sort of person.
Agreed.
She kindly helped us get interviews with Neville Southall, Peter Reid, Joe Royal. She's a lovely person, and everyone in the community. Get involved, go down to the Blue Base, they're always open. Great things going on there.
It is brilliant. I said to her, I saw Karina yesterday and I said, did she remember Friends, you know, the sitcom? And I said, there's an episode in Friends where Phoebe tries to perform a selfless act. So that people would, do you remember?
Episode,
and in the end, she couldn't do it because she was feeling good about the fact that she, you know. So, but I would say that Karina is as close to selfless as you get. So, you know, she's outstanding.
Well, you're done with that. Get that on Tinder, little clip. Boom. Boom.
Before we go, obviously, click down the link below. Get yourselves one of these. Look what these guys went through. Like Dave said, it's a labour of love. Purchase it. It's a perfect present for the Everton in your life.
Can I say something? First of all, you need to support the music from the film because money from that goes to, not all of it, but money from that goes to Everton in the community. So that's your first thing. But secondly, about this film, me and him are of an age that we kind of visualise this stuff. Well, when you're bringing up children, particularly in a year right now, where they're beating us, scoring 5 against us in the league, might do the same in the cup, and in all likelihood going to romp to the title and maybe the Champions League, you need to have something for them kids. So instead of sitting there drunk, telling them about what Peter Reid was like, or Trevor Stephen, or Kevin Sheedy, because that's what you've done, because that's what I've done. And let's not beat around the bush, that's what we do. Don't sit there drunk, say, tell you what I'll do, put it on and I'll show you. I won't describe it to you, I'll show you, and then you tell me at the end, am I crazy? Okay.
But I've got one final question for you.
Yeah.
You can answer both together, whoever wants to go first.
He'll go first.
After going through this, now obviously it was hard work, obviously it was worth it. Would you ever consider doing another film on a different era of Everton?
He would.
Do you know what? I mean, you would, and lots of people.
Depends on what it is, though.
But yeah, it does. But a lot of people have said about doing more on 86-7. There's several reasons for not doing that this time around. One would be that I always saw it in my head that it was basically to that point where we were the best team in Europe, and the full stop was Heysel. And I personally, and I think there's lots of us that feel that the club has never really recovered from Heysel, not properly. I know we won the title a couple of years later, but we never really got up on our feet in the same way. And so that was this film. I always felt like I would stop it there, and I would mention 86-7, but not in the same way. Then I used all the archive that I could afford, or all that's in that film. So if you then make another film, the archive is incredibly expensive, etc. And what we're seeing now, listen, there's been an incredibly good response, very positive response, and lots of lovely reviews, and people have gone out there and bought it. It's brilliant. But Dave did something in the fan zone for the music the other day, and I think Dave or Keith asked, there were about 100 people in front of him at the fan zone, and Dave or Keith said, how many of you have seen Howard's Way? Yeah. And only a handful of people said that they'd seen it, and that gives you an idea.
Yeah, they were all our age.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. The kids, you need to engage with this stuff. Go on, sorry to interject.
So, we need to do, so it's done quite well so far, but it would need to do that for a long, long time for the investors, and it's not just me and Mrs. Phil Brown as well, to get the money back, and that's, it's going to be a hard slog for that, and that's the film that, everyone wants, 84-5, when we were the best team in the world, and so any other film, it's just, in the end, you've got to get the finance, and finance is really, really, really difficult. And
it sounds like it was.
Yeah, it is. It is really, really tough to get it. In an ideal world, you'd make one about 87. You make one about 95. There's lots of characters in that team. It's just, it's difficult. And if you get somebody to come in the background and give you a load of cash, and he doesn't care whether it makes money or not, perfect. But that's not. It's not really that likely. It's not realistic. So, yeah, I'd love to. And 95 would be good fun, but. It's not easy. It really.
Never say
never.
No.
I've got something in the pipeline what isn't a film, but again, it comes down. I discussed it with him yesterday. It's sort of what's he as far as we're going here, and the first thing he said to me was numbers, because it's all, everything you do is all about finance. But we, going forward, I would like to think we've got a relationship now, not just me and Rob personally, but also Keith and Karina, and we all kind of get together. And we do stuff socially as well. I mean, he lives out of town, but when he's up here, he always sees us, kind of thing. So the fact that we might do something toffee related in the future, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Do you see what I'm saying? It might not be a mirror image of what we've just done, but we might well work together.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah. Now, you can get this on digital download on Amazon. You can purchase the DVD from all relevant shops. He's in St Luke's anytime soon again.
Yeah, guys? I'm in there tomorrow for the Arsenal game.
Oh look, you can get some of them signed and everything.
Actually, if you go to St Luke's, it's a little bit cheaper than you'll probably find it anywhere else. But it is cash only, so keeping up the 80s theme. It's cash only.
So we've got that machine to check if it's real, though. So don't be at that Christmas week.
Now, normally at this point, I ask the lovely viewers to subscribe. But you know what? The viewers love this guy. You are loved on Grand Old.
Nearly got away with it.
Nearly, we're going to let you go. But, do you know what? I'm not going to ask people to subscribe.
I'm going to ask them to subscribe.
Yes.
You should subscribe. If you're talking about labour of love, well, that's what these do. We're here because we recognised. I got to know Paul because I filmed with Adam after the game. Adam asked me to do it. I weren't asking Adam to do it. So I kind of go along with Adam. It's his gig, not mine. So anyone he's working with or anything his time, well, I just work with him, the way you do that. Well, I've gotten to know you and Dave and kind of your firm and what you do. You tag me and stuff, so I keep up with what you're doing. Well, that too is a labour of love. And the same as you're investing in our film, because the toffee thing, it's over and above logical sense. This is emotion we're talking about. Well, on that basis, invest in this man, because he's investing his time and his dough in you. That's my message.
That was boss.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough. I know you've been very busy today, but I really appreciate you giving up some time to come on and
no worries.
Talk to the lovely viewers.
It's been a pleasure. Anytime you want us again.
Do it again. Get down and press that link. if you haven't seen it yet, what are you waiting for?
And
buy one for your ma, your dad, your brother, your cousin.
Please do it. You've just heard him say, honest to God, it's not about personal enrichment. It's not about putting us in Montclair jackets going to match. It's honestly not. It's honestly not. It was about something else at the start. But these are the significant figures. Try and make a film and then come back and tell me there were significant numbers, honest to God. And he just told you, even if we all get 2 or 3 of them, it's still going to take a long time. So it's like going to Trevi Fountain, throw your little coppers in, it'll help going forward, but we need everybody to do it. This is a collective effort. The election result last week should underline that to you more than ever. This is a collective thing, we've got to stick together, so we're asking for you to get a little bit of quid pro quo. That's Latin and I'm not going to charge you for it, but quid pro quo, me doing for you, you doing for me. Let's move on with that. Peace out, Sophie.
Get it done. Right, so thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon. Probably talk about the Arsenal game tomorrow. But we always end it up the fucking toffees.
Merry Christmas to all of you. Look after your families and your friends.
Happy holidays.
Peace.
Colin, Chong.